3 disturbing true winter stories. I still check my rearview mirror differently now. 3 times in a row, always 3. It's been 4 years since that February night, and I can tell you exactly what the snow sounded like under his boots. That specific crunch, the rhythm of it, how it stopped when I stopped looking. The police never found him. But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is what I found in my car the next morning. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 stories that were sent to me. 3 different people, 3 different winters. But they all learned the same thing, that cold isn't just a temperature. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it knocks on your door. And sometimes it's already underneath your car, waiting. Story 1. The parking lot. This first story was sent to me by a woman named Ashley. She was working as a pharmacy tech in Grand Rapids, Michigan back in December 2019. Here's what she told me. I was working the closing shift at a 24-hour Walgreens off East Beltline. My shift ended at 11, but we'd been slammed that night. Flu season, snowstorm coming, everyone panic buying NyQuil and tissues. I didn't leave until 11:47. I remember the exact time because I checked my phone while I was locking the employee exit, thinking about how I'd promised my boyfriend I'd be home by midnight. He was already pissed at me for picking up extra shifts. The parking lot was empty except for my car. A 2004 Honda Civic, dark blue, parked under the one broken light at the far end of the lot because I'd gotten there late, and all the close spots were taken. It was maybe 70 yards from the door. The snow had just started. Not the storm yet. Just those preliminary flakes, the kind that look almost peaceful under the working lights. I walked fast. Keys already out, thumb on the unlock button, even though I was still 40 feet away. That's when I saw him. Not clearly, just a shape, standing about 15 feet behind my car, mostly hidden by the darkness where the broken light created this pocket of shadow. I stopped walking. He stopped moving. Here's the thing about that moment. I can still feel it in my chest. That specific weight that settles right behind your sternum when your brain is screaming at you but hasn't formed actual words yet. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, just staring at this dark figure who was definitely staring back at me. Then I did something that probably saved my life. I turned around and walked straight back to the employee entrance, pulled out my keys, and went back inside. My co-worker, Sarah, was still in the break room counting her drawer. "Forget something?" she asked. "There's someone in the parking lot," I said, "behind my car." She looked up. "Did you call the police?" "Not yet. Can you walk out with me? I probably just spooked myself, but..." She grabbed her coat. We went out together, this time through the front entrance where the lights were better. We walked to my car talking loudly about nothing, making ourselves obvious, making ourselves 2 people instead of 1. The figure was gone. "See?" Sarah said. "Probably just someone cutting through the lot." But her voice had that edge to it, the one that meant she didn't quite believe herself. I unlocked my car, checked the back seat, something I'd never done before but would do every single time after that night, and got in. Sarah waited until I started the engine, then walked to her own car 3 spaces over. I put the car in reverse, checked my mirrors. That's when I saw the footprints. 2 sets, both leading to my car. One set approached from the direction I'd originally seen him. but the other set came from underneath, from directly under my car. They were in the snow beside my driver's side door. Boot prints, large, probably a size 11 or 12. Meaning while I'd been standing at the employee exit, staring at the figure behind my car, there had been someone else lying underneath it, waiting for me to unlock the door, to get in, to be distracted for just the 2 seconds it would take. I sat there with my foot on the brake, staring at those prints, and something broke open inside my chest. Not fear exactly. Something colder than that. Sarah was watching me from her car, looking confused. I put mine in park, pulled out my phone, and called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line. 2 patrol cars arrived within 8 minutes. The officers searched the lot, the dumpster area, the tree line that bordered the back of the property. Nothing. But one of them came back to my car with a flashlight and knelt down beside the driver's side. "Ma'am," he said, "can you pop your hood?" I did. He spent maybe 90 seconds looking at something, then closed the hood and came to my window. "Your brake line is cut," he said. "About 80% through. Would have failed completely within the first mile, maybe 2. The snow was coming down harder now. I watched it accumulate on his shoulders while he talked. "Usually we see this in domestic situations," he said. "Someone who knows your routine, knows where you park, has time to work." "I don't know anyone who'd want to hurt me," I said. He nodded. "That's what most people say." They had my car towed. Sarah drove me home. I filed a report that went exactly nowhere because there were no cameras covering that section of the lot, and the snow had already covered the footprints by the time they thought to photograph them. I quit that job 2 weeks later. But here's what stayed with me. Here's what I think about when I check my rearview mirror 3 times in a row. The person under my car was patient. They'd gotten there early, before the lot emptied, and waited in the cold while I finished my shift, while I locked up, while I walked toward them. And when I turned around, when I went back inside, they didn't run. They waited for me to come back out. They believed I would come back out eventually. That kind of patience isn't random. That's not opportunistic. That's someone who'd done this before. Ashley told me the police recommended she get her locks changed. She moved to a different apartment entirely. And for about 6 months, she convinced herself it was over. That whoever it was had moved on, found someone else, or gotten caught doing it to someone else. Then January of the next year, she saw the news story. A woman in Kentwood, maybe 12 miles from that Walgreens, was found in her car on the shoulder of M6. Brake failure, single vehicle accident. But when they examined the car, they found the line had been cut. The police said it looked professional, precise, like someone who'd done it before. They never connected it to Ashley's case. Different jurisdiction, different circumstances. But she knew, and knowing is its own kind of cold. Story 2, The Cabin. This second story comes from a guy named Marcus. His brother Jake was going through a divorce back in February 2017, and Marcus had just broken up with someone he thought he'd marry. They decided to rent a cabin in the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, one of those remote ice fishing setups you can only access by snowmobile. Here's what Marcus told me happened. We got there Friday afternoon. The guy who owned the place, Gary, maybe 60, face like weathered leather, drove us in on his snowmobile, pulling our gear on a sled. "Radio's on the kitchen table," he said, pointing to a yellow walkie-talkie unit plugged into the wall. "Channel 6. I check in every morning at 8. You need anything before that, you call. I'll hear it." "What if something happens at night?" Jake asked. Gary looked at him for a long moment. "Nothing happens at night out here," he said. "Too cold. Everything smart stays inside." He left us there. The cabin was small. One main room with a wood stove. 2 tiny bedrooms, barely big enough for the single beds inside them. An outhouse 20 feet from the back door. We spent Friday night drinking whiskey and not talking about our respective breakups. Just sitting by the fire, playing cards, listening to the wind move through the pines. I went to bed around midnight. Jake stayed up reading. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. because the cabin was freezing. I could see my breath in the air, silver white in the moonlight coming through the window. The fire had died completely. Not just burned down, died, like it had been out for hours. I got up, pulled on my boots and coat over my thermal layers, and went into the main room. Jake was asleep on the couch, book open on his chest. The front door was open, not just unlocked. Open, maybe 6 inches. Snow had blown in across the floor, creating this little drift just inside the threshold. I stood there staring at it, my brain trying to catch up. I'd watched Jake lock that door. I'd heard the deadbolt slide into place. "Jake," I said. He didn't move. "Jake." Louder this time. He jerked awake, confused, looking around. "Did you open the door?" I asked. He stared at me, then at the door, then at the snow on the floor. "No," he said. "We both just stood there." "Wind?" he offered. "You locked it," I said. "I watched you." He got up, went to the door, examined the lock. "It's not broken." "So someone unlocked it." "From inside," he said. We looked at each other. Jake checked both bedrooms, the outhouse, the small storage shed beside the cabin. Nothing. We locked the door again, both the handle lock and the deadbolt, and wedged a chair under the knob for good measure. I restarted the fire while Jake swept up the snow. "Probably just didn't catch properly," he said. "Old locks, cold metal, contracted or something." "Yeah," I said. Neither of us believed it. We stayed up until sunrise, taking turns watching the door. It didn't open, again. At 8 a.m., the radio crackled. "Morning, boys." Gary's voice, distorted with static. "Everyone alive?" Jake grabbed it. "Yeah. Hey, question, did anyone else have access to this cabin recently, like in the last week?" Silence. Then, "Why?" "Front door was open last night. Woke up and it was just open." Another long pause. "You lock it before bed?" "Yeah." "Both locks?" "Yeah." More silence. Long enough that Jake looked at me, uncertain. Finally, "I'll come check on you. Give me an hour." He didn't ask if we were okay. He didn't tell us it was probably nothing. He just said he'd come check on us. That felt worse somehow. Gary arrived 53 minutes later. He didn't knock, just opened the door and came inside, tracking snow. He looked at the lock, at the floor, at the chair we still had wedged under the knob. "Show me where you found the snow," he said. We showed him. He knelt down, studying the floorboards, then stood and walked to the back window, the one in Jake's bedroom. "This window open when you got here Friday?" he asked. "No," Jake said. Gary pointed. The latch was undone, not broken, just unlatched. "I locked that," Jake said. "I specifically remember checking all the windows before bed." Gary didn't say anything. He just walked outside. We followed him. He went around to the back of the cabin, to the wall beneath Jake's window, and pointed at the snow. There were marks, subtle, almost completely filled in by fresh powder, but still visible if you knew where to look. Boot prints, leading to the window, and then away, toward the tree line. Someone was here, I said. Gary's jaw was tight. Someone's been here multiple times. See how the prints layer? Different depths. These are from last night. These are older. Day or two, maybe. Why? Jake asked. What do they want? Gary looked at him. You're alone. You're isolated. You're warm. So this is just... what? Someone hoping we'd let them in? Maybe, Gary said. Or someone checking if you were awake. That landed like a stone. What do you mean? I asked. Old trapper trick, Gary said. You watch a place, learn the routine. When the lights go out, when the fire dies, when people are deepest asleep. He paused. Then you see what they have worth taking. We don't have anything, Jake said. You have heat, Gary said. You have food. You have a snowmobile key somewhere in that cabin. He looked toward the tree line. Someone out here without those things? That's someone desperate. He made us pack our stuff, drove us back to our car himself, made 2 trips for all the gear. I'll refund you for the other nights, he said. I need to figure out who this is before I rent to anyone else. Did you call the police? I asked. He looked at me like I'd said something funny. You're 9 miles from a plowed road, he said. Sheriff's got 2 deputies for 400 square miles. You know what their response? Time is out here? I didn't answer. Long enough that it wouldn't matter, he said. We drove back to Minneapolis in silence. Jake sold his ice fishing gear the following month. Said he was done with winter camping. I didn't blame him. But here's what I think about sometimes. Whoever was at that cabin, they'd been watching us for at least 2 days before they tried the door. They'd seen us arrive, watched us settle in, learned our patterns. And the only reason they didn't come inside that night is because we woke up. Because the cold from the open door reached us before they did. 4 months later, Gary called me. I don't know how he got my number. I didn't ask. Found your guy, he said. What? Guy who was watching the cabin? Found him? How? Different renters. May. He tried it again. My throat went dry. What happened? They didn't wake up, Gary said. Silence. They're fine, he cut in. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Just took their food, their propane, some cash. Disappeared before morning. So you caught him? No. But I found his camp, about 3 miles deeper in the woods. He'd been out there since December, best I could tell. Living off whatever he could scavenge. Why didn't he just ask for help? Gary laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Some people don't want to be found, he said, even when they're freezing to death. Is he still out there? No. Rangers found his camp 2 weeks ago, empty. Looks like he moved on, or... He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I think about that sometimes too. About someone so desperate to stay hidden that they'd rather risk freezing than ask for warmth. About how close we came to waking up and finding him standing over us. About what he might have done if we hadn't woken up at all. The cold doesn't kill you quickly. It's patient. It waits. Marcus told me that after that trip, he was done with winter isolation. Done with remote cabins and frozen lakes and all that silence. But sometimes the most dangerous cold isn't the one you travel to. Sometimes it's the one that comes to your door. Story 3, The Neighbor. This last story comes from a woman named Elena. She'd been living in the same apartment complex in Duluth, Minnesota for 3 years when this happened back in January 2021. Here's her story. The building had maybe 30 units. Most of the tenants were young professionals, college students, a few retirees. I knew some of them to wave to, knew a few by name. But I'd never spoken to the guy in 2C. He moved in sometime in November 2020. Quiet. Kept to himself. I'd see him occasionally in the hallway or the parking lot. Tall, maybe early 30s, dark coat, always carrying this old leather messenger bag. He never made eye contact, never said hello. Just moved through the building like a ghost? I didn't think much of it. Then the cold snap hit. January 13th. Temperature dropped to -18 overnight. Wind chill pushing -40. The kind of cold that kills exposed skin in minutes. I woke up that morning to find my bathroom pipes had frozen. No water. I called the building manager, who said a plumber was coming, but it might be a few hours. Half the building had the same problem. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was him, the guy from 2C. He was just standing there, messenger bag over his shoulder, breath fogging in the hallway. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "Hi," I said. He smiled. It looked practiced. "Hey, sorry to bother you," he said. "I'm in 2C. My heat's out and the building manager isn't answering. I was wondering if I could wait in your place for a bit, just until the maintenance guy shows up." Every rational part of my brain said no. But it was -18 outside, and he looked cold, really cold. "The manager's dealing with frozen pipes," I said. "He should be around this afternoon." "Right, yeah." He shifted his weight. "It's just really cold in there. I can't feel my fingers." I hesitated. "Please," he said. "Just for an hour. I'll stay right by the door. I won't be weird about it." That phrase, "I won't be weird about it," that's what decided me. Because only someone who is worried about seeming weird would say that. I let him in. He sat in the chair by the door, exactly where he said he would. Kept his coat on, kept the messenger bag in his lap. I made coffee. He accepted a cup but barely touched it. We didn't talk much. I tried a few times, asked how he was liking the building, where he'd moved from, what he did for work. His answers were short, polite but empty. After maybe 20 minutes, my phone rang. The plumber saying he was on his way up. "That's my cue," the guy said, standing. "They'll probably check your unit too," I offered. "Yeah, thanks for the coffee." He left. I thought that was the end of it. 3 days later, another knock. I checked the peephole. Him again. This time I didn't open the door. "Can I help you?" I called through it. "Hey, it's me, from 2C. Power's out in my unit." I think a breaker flipped. "Do you know where the electrical panel is?" "Basement," I said. "By the laundry room." "Right. Could you show me? I've never been down there." Something in my chest tightened. "I'm actually about to head out," I lied. "It'll take 2 seconds. There's a map of the building in the lobby. It'll show you where the panel is." Silence. Then, "Okay, thanks." I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. I stood at the door for a long time, listening. He didn't knock again that day. But the next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Handwritten. Neat block letters. "Thanks for your help." Sorry if I made you uncomfortable. 2C asterisk. I stared at that note for a long time, trying to decide if it made me feel better or worse. A week passed. No more knocks. No more encounters in the hallway. I started to relax. Then I ran into my neighbor across the hall, Marissa, a grad student who lived there longer than I had. "Hey," she said, "did that guy from 2C ask you for anything weird?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "He came by twice last week. First time he said his heat was out. Second time he needed to use my phone because his was dead. Both times felt off." "Did you let him in?" "First time, yeah. He stayed for maybe 10 minutes. Was polite enough. But the second time, I said no." She lowered her voice. I checked with the building manager after. There was nothing wrong with his heat. And the electrical panel? It's clearly labeled. He didn't need help finding it. We stood there in the hallway, and I felt something shift. "How many other people do you think he's asked?" I said. She shook her head. "I don't know. But I'm going to find out." Over the next 2 days, Marissa knocked on every door in the building. Out of 30 units, he'd approached 14, always with a different excuse. Heat out, power out, phone dead, locked out, needed to borrow a tool, needed to use a bathroom, needed to wait for a delivery. Only 4 people had let him in, all women, all living alone. When Marissa told me that, something in my chest went ice cold. We went to the building manager together. He pulled the lease for 2C. The guy had moved in November 15th. First month, last month, and deposit all paid in cash. The name on the lease was Michael Renner. But when the manager tried to run a background check, something he admitted he should have done before approving the lease, the name came back clean. Too clean. No credit history, no previous addresses, no employer information that checked out. "It's a fake," Marissa said. The manager's face went pale. He called the police. 2 officers came by that evening, knocked on the door to 2C. No answer. They tried again the next morning. Still no answer. The manager used his key. The apartment was empty. Not just empty, cleared out. No furniture, no belongings, nothing. Like no one had ever lived there at all. The only thing they found was a stack of papers on the kitchen counter. Printed maps, floor plans of the building, and photos, 12 photos, all of different women, all taken through windows or in the parking lot or in the hallway. One of them was me, unlocking my car. The police took the photos, took statements from everyone he'd approached, put out a bulletin with his description, but they never found him. The name was fake. The car he'd been driving was never registered in the state. The cash payment meant no credit trail. He was a ghost, and we'd all let him practice. That's what the detective told us. That's the word he used. Practice. "Men like this," he said, "they don't start with the crime. They start with the approach. They test boundaries, see who lets them in, who asks questions, who trusts too easily." "You think he was planning something?" Marissa asked. The detective looked at the photos spread across the manager's desk. "I think he already knew who he'd choose," he said. He was just waiting for the right night. I moved out of that building in March. Marissa left a month later. I don't know what happened to the others in those photos. I hope they're okay. I hope they didn't open their doors on the wrong night. But sometimes I think about that note he left under my door. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable. Like discomfort was the worst thing he'd done. Like he hadn't been standing in my apartment, cataloging my space my routines, my vulnerabilities. Learning me. The cold isn't just what's outside. Sometimes it's what you let in because you feel sorry for it. Sometimes it knocks, and it's polite, and it waits for you to say yes.